Hi everybody, welcome to Best of British Blackwell. Today we're going to be cooking a chicken, mushroom and bacon pie. Again, nice traditional recipe. Got lots of good feedback about the steak pie that I made, the steak and kidney pie that I made a few weeks ago. So we're going to have a go at a slight variation on that. Come over and have a look at the ingredients. I'll show you how simple this is to make. So here we go. These are our ingredients. Most important ingredient is obviously our chicken. I've got some lovely large chicken breasts here, 2 of those. I've got some lovely smoked bacon lardons here. I've finely chopped up half an onion, that's all you need. I've got some nice mushrooms. I'm using about half a dozen of these. Notice I've taken the stems off here. For our pastry, I'm using a shop bought puff pastry sheet. I've also got a couple of chicken Knorr stock pots. I've got some double cream. I've got an egg here which I'm going to use to paste over the top of the pastry when the pie is nearly done. And I've got a couple of mustards here as well. I've got a spiced honey mustard, and I also have some Trackerman's hot mustard as well. Just adds a nice little kick to the flavour. Finally, I've got a little bit of butter which I'm going to fry the onions and the bacon off in. So that's the first thing to do really. Let's start to prepare our ingredients. So in terms of the chicken, we're going to chop this up first. As you would have seen if you watched my steak and kidney pie recipe, I don't like to chop these up too small. You want some nice big hearty pieces of chicken in this pie. So I just cut the chicken breast straight down the middle, and maximum of 3 big chunks per half. So you're just cutting it down into 6 big pieces here. This chicken breast is slightly bigger, so I'm going to just cut the side fillet off of that, cut it down the middle again, and just go in here with some nice big chunks of chicken. So here we go. Got a nice saucepan. I've put it on a pretty decent high heat. First things first, get a decent tablespoon size knob of butter. Get that straight into the bottom of the pan and let that melt down. Pretty much as soon as the butter's melted down, just turn the heat down a little bit, because the last thing you want to do is burn that butter. It's going to add a really bitter taste. Next step, get the smoked bacon lardons straight in there. Perfect. Give them a little bit of a stir and let those simmer away in there for about 2 or 3 minutes. Bacon's been in for a couple of minutes. It's at this stage that we add our onion. Now the temperature of the ingredients that we put in, like the bacon and the onion here, have reduced the overall temperature of the saucepan. So what we can do now is we can just crank the heat up a little tiny bit. And what we want to do is get these onions to the kind of translucent, kind of sweated down texture. So this is probably going to take about 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, I think the onions and the bacon are looking lovely, as you can see. Nice and soft, beautifully sweated down. Lots of moisture in there as well, which is going to add to the consistency of this pie. Now we take our chicken pieces, dump those straight in. And it's at this stage that I add some pepper. Notice I'm not using any salt in here at all. I don't think you need it. The bacon's going to be salty enough. Plus we're also going to be adding some lovely creamy textures in here later with that cream. So it's at this stage that I'm not going to put the lid back on here. I'm just going to let this chicken start to cook away. Mix all those ingredients together. Turn the heat down a little bit, and then just let this start to cook. I'm going to chop the mushrooms up now, and then we'll be adding that in very soon too. Okay, so no big deal with these mushrooms. We're not going to dice them or anything like that. We're going to take them and we're going to chop them into quarters. That's all we're going to do. As you will know, with mushrooms, they kind of lose a lot of their shape when they're cooking. They also lose a lot of their moisture, so you need to be careful of that. But when you bite into a chicken and mushroom pie, you really want to be able to see and feel the texture of those mushrooms in there as well as taste them. So that's why we chop them up quite coarsely. Here we go. We're only about 10 or 15 minutes into this cook now, and pretty much all of our main ingredients are kind of sitting together. The only thing that we need to do is add our mushrooms in here. Like I said, these are going to give you quite a bit of moisture, so don't be too scared about adding these too early into the cook. You want them to lose that moisture, and then what we're going to do is use the moisture that sits at the bottom of this pan to add our chicken stock in there. We're going to also top it up with some water as well, so don't be scared to add the mushrooms in at this stage Dale. Okay, so chicken, mushrooms and bacon have been on the go now for about 20 minutes. As you can see, all of our core ingredients have fallen together there quite nicely, and hopefully what you'll be able to see is there's a lot of moisture sitting in the bottom of this pan. That's beautiful. We want to use that now. We want that to create that lovely gravy that's going to fit that's going to sit inside this pie. So what we do, we take our stock cubes now, or our stock pots. We put those straight in. Always struggle to get these out. Excuse my fingers. So I've got 2 of these in total. Beautiful. And then I just add a little dash of water in there too. And it's at this stage that I kind of just move the stock cubes into the middle, take my spoon out, and just let the stock cube dissolve, or the stock pot dissolve straight into the middle of the pot. You can use stock cubes, you can crumble those in there, you can use beef stock cubes if you want to, you can use vegetable stock cubes if you want to, but seeing as this is a chicken pie, makes a great deal of sense to use the chicken stock pot. As you can see, our gravy is starting to form quite beautifully here. The stock cubes melted down lovely, mixed with the water. There's some lovely butter in there as well. There's moisture from those mushrooms. What you can do now is you can leave this with the lid off to start to reduce down, just simmer away, and that gravy will thicken up, and that's exactly what you want. While it's doing that, I'm going to take a nice heaped teaspoon of some spiced honey mustard. I'm using the Tracklements spiced honey mustard, which I've used before a couple of times. It's absolutely wonderful. Really adds a nice sweet texture to this dish. But then I'm also going to follow that up with a nice teaspoon of their strong English mustard as well. Now this stuff is really quite spicy, but I don't mind that at all. It just adds a lovely flavour dimension in here. It's at this stage now that I will give this a little stir, and hopefully you can see how that gravy's taking on that lovely thick texture. It's beautiful. The final thing that we're going to do here just before we put it into the pie is add some cream to it to give it that lovely kind of creamy gravy texture. Okay, so our gravy and our pie filling started to kind of thicken in texture. As you can see, it's about the consistency I want, probably just a little bit thicker than I want. That's fine, because I'm going to add a bit of double cream in there, give that a nice stir, turn the heat right down so that that double cream doesn't curdle, and now look at that. That is the type of texture, colour and consistency that you're looking for. Okay, so let's prepare our pie dish. I'm using the same pie dish as I used before with the steak and kidney pie. As you can see, it's been well buttered. You don't want that pastry to stick to the bottom. And I'm just using some shop bought puff pastry here. Quite simply, I'm going to cut this straight down the middle. And I'm going to try and do this without rolling actually. The last time I rolled this out, it kind of stuck to the rolling pin and it wasn't really that precise. I'm just going to kind of wing it really and see if I can mould this a bit with my hands more than a rolling pin, because I sometimes think it goes a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it again, and this time go through the paper, I hope. Here we go. Now hopefully this time I should be able to put this to one side for the lid, bring this over here, and I want to just be able to settle this straight into the pie dish. And now rather than roll it out, I'm going to manoeuvre it into place with my hands. There we go. I'm happy with that. Doesn't look the prettiest thing in the world, but you know what? I'll take it. I'm going to bring the filling over here. Final thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do this with a fork. Just prick the bottom of the pastry here. Just creates a few kind of breathing bubbles, if you like. Just make sure that the pastry doesn't come out with a soggy bottom. And then finally, look at that. Look at the inside of that. That is beautiful. I'm going to just start to fill this pastry case up with all of that filling. Might have done a little bit too much, but you know what? It's all going in there, I've decided. I don't care how tight it is for space. Look at that. Okay, so with my pastry top, I have decided not to be quite so rustic with the pastry, just to make sure that I get a nice decent covering over the top of the pie. And I have taken the shop bought puff pastry. I'm going to fashion it into a disc over some nice flour, and I will roll this out into the best kind of circle shape that I can get, just to make sure it covers all the top of the pie and gives us that lovely flaky texture to the pastry. What I find with puff pastry is if you put it onto the pie too thick, or anything too thick really, it doesn't puff up. It kind of just stays as one big kind of gloop, and that's a bit, it's a bit kind of starchy and a bit stodgy to eat. So I am going to roll this out. I'm going to try and get it nice and thin. We're using a nice deep pastry pie dish here, so that shouldn't matter too much. Try and get it nice and thin. Plenty of flour on the board here, as you can see. And that looks about right. Let's see if I've managed to pull this off. So pastry over here. Let's bring the dish over here. Oh, I sat it on top. Let's try and cover that. That doesn't look too bad to me. And let's just cover the pie straight over the top. Last time I made a pie, I kind of sat the pastry on the inside of the dish here, and it all kind of shriveled up a bit. You might have noticed that in the video. I don't want that to happen this time. So I'm going to pinch the pastry in, but I'm also going to try and work it to the outside of the pie dish here. But you know me, you've seen any of my videos, not that bothered about presentation really. It's all about the taste. And this doesn't look too bad to me. Is it going to win any Michelin stars? No. Is it going to feed a family? Absolutely. And that's the whole point of my cooking here. So pinch the pieces of pastry together. Make sure everything's all sealed up. You don't want anything leaking out here. And then I'm going to give it a quick pull over to the side of the dish. That is about as good as I can do now. Finally, just to finish it off, you give it a little bit of a cut in the middle. This stops the steam forming and gives the steam a bit of an outlet as well. And the very final touch, first thing I'm going to do actually, blow a bit of that pastry off. And for the very final touch, let's get some egg wash over the top here. You'll notice that I've used quite a lot of the flour just to make sure that the pastry didn't stick. And the egg wash is going to soak up a lot of that as well. So we finish egg washing this. It goes into the oven. I'm going to put it in at 180. It doesn't need to be in for long. I think it needs about 20 minutes, to be honest with you. But what I tend to do is take it out when the pastry starts to look a nice golden brown. We know that our chicken's cooked. We know the bacon's cooked. The filling is basically done. We just want to make sure that the pastry is done at the bottom and that we've got a nice golden crust. Okay guys, so here it is. You know, looking really rustic. Not looking like the tidiest thing in the world. But you know what? It's a really good looking pie, and I bet you it's going to taste absolutely divine. There we go. Pie's looking really good. Served it up with some chantenay carrots, some roasted new potatoes, and I'm sure you agree, it looks really, really good, almost good enough to eat. Give it a go for yourself. Really easy to make. Superb dish.